Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our Girls Rock Science Roundtable discussion with four brilliant female, non-binary, and gender non-conforming STEM professionals. My name is Gurpreet Gill. I'm a volunteer with the Carnegie Science Center, and I'll be the moderator for today's panel discussion. I would also like to introduce Shen, who is the ASL interpreter for this session. We are excited to have our panelists here to talk about their experiences in the STEM workforce and advice they have for young people interested in STEM. Let's start off with everyone introducing yourselves. We can start with Dr. Brown.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Andrews Brown. My background is in soil and water quality with a focus on environmental restoration. I am currently an assistant dean at the University of Pittsburgh, and I run the environmental studies program where I teach and advise undergraduate students. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Next, I would request Carla for the introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Rosenfeld. I actually also have a background in soil science. Danielle and I went to graduate school together at Penn State. And I'm an environmental chemist, and I'm an assistant curator at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, where I do research in the minerals collection and as well as in reclamation of mining sites. Thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you, Carla. Next, I would request Tiger for the introduction.
Hi, I'm Steiger. I work for the City and County of San Francisco. I'm currently working with our Department of Public Health as a process improvement coordinator, but until the beginning of this month, I had worked with our fire department for the last 6 years at our division of training. And my educational background is in chemical physics and material science.
Thank you, Steiger. And last, I would request Tiffany.
Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Tichy. I am a senior mechanical engineer. I work in the energy industry as well as a STEM children's book author. So I've produced a book called What Can I Be? STEM Careers from A to Z. So I'm excited to be here and share the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the introductions. I have a few questions prepared to get our conversation started, but the folks watching live are encouraged to ask questions of their own. Leave your questions in the comments and we'll try to answer them later on. So my first question for the panelists is, a lack of confidence has been noted as a barrier for many STEM students as they progress through their education. What advice would you offer STEM students who are facing a lack of confidence in themselves, and how do they develop self-confidence? So you can just unmute and.
I'm happy to take that one. First of all, I feel you. I live with that. I know it's like trite, but like fake it till you make it has helped me a lot. But another thing I would really push for is like, if you're like passionate about studying anything, like there are absolutely people who share that passion. And if you find them that can like, you can like feed off each other's energy and excitement about that to just get into, or even just learning people, like meeting people who have like similar interests as yours and sharing knowledge with one another and collaborating can really just make you kind of like forget about yourself and just like get excited again about what you're interested in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would just add to what Steiger said, and for me, it had a lot to do with mentorship. So finding someone you can look up to and having that network really helped me. I still sometimes suffer with some self-confidence issues. So it's a work in progress, but finding like-minded people and people who will support you throughout your STEM career has proven invaluable for me.
That's right.
And I would agree. The biggest thing is STEM representation matters. And I think that's what we're alluding to. And if they could see themselves in it, I think that's the biggest part. So when you have the mentorship, the sponsorships, and have representation, because you talk about the hidden figures, no one knew about them. But now they're no hidden no more. And there's so many of us that's out here. And I think that's the biggest part, that we've got to show representation. So the more that the girls get to see themselves in it, see the opportunities, I think that's what helps build that self-esteem.
And I'll also add, I think all of these are fantastic answers. And one thing that has helped for me as well is to have a community of people that I could talk about it with and see that other people also, suffered from self-confidence issues. And learning that all these people that I think are brilliant and so accomplished in all these different ways may also struggle with some of these things. And so it's helpful just to talk about it and to have a community that I think you can start to see where you shine and where they shine. And that has helped me a lot as well.
That's right. I agree with it. Okay, so we can move on to our next question. I would like you to tell us about a challenge you faced early in your STEM career or education and how you overcame it. Anyone would like to go first? Yeah, Tiffany.
All right, I'll go. Let's see here. So knowing that this is a male-dominated field with engineering, I knew what I was getting into. So I guess if I gave an example, would be sitting in the classroom itself, as far as being that it's only so many females in the classroom doing engineering, what I was in. But I didn't let it discourage me. I will say I am that one that puts my hand up in the classroom, in the front of the classroom, asking the questions. So to give the example is, I've always been that one that's in the classroom asking those questions. And so regardless of whatever situation I'm in, I didn't let it deter me, or because I knew what my goal was. And so just from an education standpoint, that was where I went from it. So being that now I'm in the career working, I've had that same, you still deal with the experience. And so just to give an example, I've walked into a room where it's all men, and guys shook hands with everybody except for me. And a lot of times we get mistaken for being an admin, and no offense to being an admin, but those are the type of situation where we have to try to say, okay, I've got this education, I'm just as important. So I introduced myself and said, I'm a responsible engineer. I'm the one who's going to be dealing with the project, dealing with the vendor. And so sometimes you have to put them in perspective and let them know where you stand. And so that's kind of one of the examples that I can say from being that educational standpoint in a male-dominated field that I've learned how to maneuver still with my career itself.
So I can go next. I think, like Tiffany, I was always usually the only female in my classroom, sometimes the only person, mostly always the only person of color, and definitely the only international person in the classes. And so it was a very difficult space to maneuver. And one of the challenges I found, because I'm also quite introverted, is that when I would speak, it almost was like no one was hearing me. And I would have male colleagues say the exact thing, and it was accepted with overwhelming praise. And I'm like, I just said that. So I think for me, I had to learn how to use my voice and make sure that my voice is being heard, and just to stand up for myself. I think too often, I have had situations where I'm assumed to not be part of the group because I'm the only female or non-male person in the room. So I think using my voice has helped me overcome some of those challenges.
That's right, actually. Does anyone else want to comment on that question?
Yeah, I think I share like just a very similar experience, like being like one of the only people like in my program, in my classroom, that like looked like me or like had my perspective, and really just like keeping going was how I got through it. I think we've probably all been through an experience where like it was tough, it was hard, but we all obviously kept going to be here. So it's not easy, but just like believe in yourself and work through it.
That's a good advice. Believe in yourself is like really important at times like this. Okay, so we can, Carla, you wanted to add something? Did I?
Sure. I guess I was gonna say one thing that I didn't always see when I was young was where science might lead me. Particularly, I was not ever interested in medicine or being sort of a medical doctor. And I didn't have a lot of insight into what a science career could be like. And so for a lot of times I questioned, is that, oh, I enjoy science, but is that really where I want to follow? And one thing that I've learned more recently is how many different options you have. You can see we have an author here on our panel. We have somebody working for the city. We have somebody working for a university. I work for a museum. So there's lots of different careers. And there are also lots of ways to enjoy science and participate in science, even if you don't become a practicing scientist, right? And so I think that was something that was really important for me to see, that I could pursue science and have lots of options. And I didn't have to give up other hobbies or other interests also.
That's right. Okay, so I'll move on to our next question. What advice would you give your younger self? Dr. Brown, do you want to start off?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about, what I was thinking when I was younger. I would say I was fortunate to have really supportive parents. And I also grew up in a country where female, person of color, and how it intersects with science was never an issue for me growing up. So I'm not too sure I would speak to myself that much younger, but maybe when I came to the US, where I started to struggle with a lot of things. And I think my advice to myself would be really simple. I would just tell myself that it will all work out in the end. It would be okay, right? All the stress, all the strain, all the tears, it would be okay. And you will get to where you're going. Just be patient and do the work.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anyone else want to go ahead and try to answer? Okay, then I can have another interesting question that I'm actually looking forward to. So, which is one of the coolest, most fun STEM projects you have ever gotten to work on?
Okay, I guess I can start this one off because it still excites me to this day, although it was like maybe 10 years ago. So I work with my husband, Neil, in South Africa. And one of the projects we embarked on was using South African stories to make science concepts phenomenal. And it was just such an amazing experience where we would be driving through rural spaces in South Africa, and the kids from the primary school, elementary school would be yelling at us from the roadside with the concepts that we had been teaching them. And I think it's just, so it was nothing formal. It was just a very informal space where we were using storytelling to get kids interested in science. And I think that's just like one of the biggest highlights of my entire career, to be honest.
That's amazing. It sounds so, I would say, satisfying. For you, it would have been so nice. Okay, Steiger, do you want to go ahead?
One of my earliest internships was at an aeroscience corporation, and I was working on like little machining projects, but obviously I was part of a much bigger team. And I remember like getting towards the end of that project and like seeing like the actual like rocket that kind of everyone had like helped put together. And even though I was like such a small part of it, or I felt like such a small part of it, like seeing the tangible end of the project was like this mind-blowing experience to me.
Tiffany or Carla, do you want to add on?
I can. So I'm in the nuclear power industry. So of course you're trying to make it fancy in some way, but I'd say one, well, I've done different projects, but one was out in California. I'm here in the East Coast and everything. So to travel all the way there, just the traveling experience when you're dealing with projects has been the experience. So I was out there at Diablo Canyon Power Plant, and it's one of the beautiful plants. Like you never would have thought you could say beautiful for a plant, but it was out there in the water. And the experience of just having that work assignment there, I think that was my biggest thing. And I took advantage of the experience because I was able to go skydiving, surfing, all the different things. And I know that sounds crazy for working on a project, but taking advantage of projects where you can travel, I think was one of the takeaways from my experience. And you look at it from a different perspective. So that's my spin, is the travel piece of projects and being able to take advantage of that opportunity. And I was living it up in California. So
Best time of your life.
yes.
I'll second what Tiffany said. I've really enjoyed all the different places I've gotten to go. And both for doing science. I've gone down to the deepest underground mine in northern Minnesota. It's over a mile deep underground, under the surface of the ground. And I've been on the top of mountains. Usually I'm using a shovel to dig pits or to collect samples, or like scooping goo off of walls. So that's sort of an interesting experience, but also for conferences and getting to go share science and meet other colleagues. And I've gotten to go to Europe and Asia and all over the United States for conferences. And that has been also a really nice experience for me. So
That's nice. Okay, so we move on to our next question. What is one aspect of your background, life, or identity that you previously viewed as a stumbling block or something to get past that you have since realized helps you in some way? So anything that you initially thought it was a kind of an obstacle for you, but now you think it actually helped you?
Mine would be the questioning attitude. I didn't even know that was even considered with safety where I am now. But when I was that curious girl in school, I thought, oh, they always thinking I'm always asking the questions. I'm always curious and stuff too. But it really benefited, because it's important with the work that I do that I have those questioning attitudes. And so a spinoff from being able to ask those questions is what's helped me to be able to make sure that I'm safe wise, and that whatever product or equipment I'm dealing with, we are safe with it. So I thought me being that curious girl in school, young, asking questions, especially in math class and science class, I thought it was like, oh, but that's that imposter syndrome piece that you just don't know as a girl that you're talking about. And so taking that and spinning it, it's been for the benefit because it's needed in the work that we do. And so that's what I would say.
I think I would say one of the things I was always concerned about is my down-to-earth nature. Like, I am not super formal, if I can say that. And I was concerned that that sort of personality would allow for me not to seem professional, etc. But I've found that because my career path has taken me to spaces where I interact mostly with non-scientists, that personality trait has allowed for the people I engage with to trust me, and to trust when I say things, and to trust to engage with me, and to trust that I will bring no harm to them. And so I think I cherish that the most, because I was always concerned that I wouldn't be taken seriously. And now I've found myself in a space where that's what allows for me to be taken seriously.
I'll add that for me, I think I was always very stubborn. And I fought with my parents all the time about everything, mostly just to fight with them. And, you know, I was, I think it has helped me in my career now, because I stick with things. If something is sort of bothering me, I now can sort of channel that energy and poke and prod and try and figure out, and I'll stick with it. And that is something that, you know, you end up in times where the project is not that interesting, or you're sort of in a phase where you're doing a part of the work that you just don't like as much as some of the other parts. And my stubbornness helps me see that there will be other parts that I like better. And so that has been something that has turned around for me.
I would say I think I've always struggled a little bit with expressing myself verbally, especially like in crowds or big groups, big classrooms. But like the more I've like worked through things, like I realize that my intention and like my subject matter still comes across somehow in the conversations I have. And especially like I've learned to focus on like small group conversations and one-on-one conversations that like what was previously a stumbling block for me helped me like figure out the situations in which I work best and collaborate the best.
Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What's something you thought was important or that someone told you was important early in your STEM career that you have realized it's not important to you? Anything they said that was important, but now you have realized it's not important to you, at least.
I could take that one because I was talking about it just this morning. And I would say publications. When I started in the STEM field and got into academia, it was like, you have to write papers, you have to write papers, you have to write papers. And I just don't like writing papers. I enjoy doing the research and analyzing the data and understanding the story, but I don't like writing it. And where I am in my career today, having publications does not matter, does not help me progress in life. It's just an add-on. So I think I've found a perfect space for me, given the things that I actually don't like doing and the things I like doing. So publications would be that for me. It's important, but not important for me.
I totally agree with you.
I would say the idea that you have to do anything career-wise or education-wise on a specific timeline. I feel like, especially in academia, it feels like you should go from high school to college to graduate school to like a postdoc to whatever. And like I've met so many people and I've personally like gained a lot of experience in my life by like not taking a direct path to things, by like working on side projects or working in other industries. I worked at a public college for a while and seeing like students who were in their teens and students who were in like their 60s in the same class, like really kind of dispelled the idea that like you have to be a specific age to do anything. And honestly, like a lot of those folks who come back to school or to an industry like later in life, they know what they're about and they kind of know what their skills and their strengths are, and they like are ready to commit to the things that they're passionate about at that time more than they might be if they were just kind of like on this educational treadmill.
Let's see here. Go ahead.
Are you sure? You can go if you want.
Carla, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. I would say there's a thought that you have to get all the best grades in school in order and that if you're not getting the best grades, you're not the smartest person in the room, and then you're not going to, get into science or something like that. And the reality is there's so many different ways to get experience. If you didn't do well in a class because something was going on in your life, or because it wasn't interesting to you, like that's okay. I think work your hardest and use all the different types of experience that you can get. And that's not always just studying in the books and getting the best grades.
For me, the concept of work-life balance versus work-life integration, harmony. I mean, you don't learn that to the end, but you can do that now in school. You can't realize you don't do balance. It's more integration. You're going to be involved in so much. I was well-rounded and active in so much in school, and I'm still active now, but learning to be able to integrate it in harmony and peace being, and everybody who's with you working together alongside with your goals, I think is the biggest piece. So that whole concept of you're going to work-life balance and all that, no, work-life integration is a whole different mindset. And so that's the piece, even in schoolwork, in school, if you think back to that, if we would have been told that somewhat too, you got to balance everything. No, you take what you're doing and be able to integrate it and work together. And the people you're surrounded by, you work together, I think is the biggest piece, I think, learning with life.
That's actually good. Okay, so we move to our next question. What are the difficulties of being a woman of color in STEM? Difficulties of being a member of the LGBTQ plus community in STEM? Any difficulties that you have faced till now, if you would like to share that with us?
I'll speak from a woman of color in STEM. I mean, it's almost like you know what you're walking into. I knew what I was walking into with being, it's a male dominated field, but then also on top of that, being an African-American female in it, it's been interesting as far as the journey. However, I took advantage, and I still take advantage of organizations that help with that guidance and those that are like you. For example, the National Society of Black Engineers. I'm a lifetime member of that. And SWE, Society of Women Engineers. So there's organizations out there that's helped me even through the diversity side of things and being able to cope, that has helped me be able to manage and be able to see others as a part of me. It's been the biggest thing. So it's still a journey in itself, because we need more. As I spoke of the hidden figures, we talk about them being hidden. I'm gonna keep pushing it because that's my favorite. I enjoy that movie. But those women were examples where you're smart. You're just as smart as everyone else. And that's the piece where, regardless of color, race, all that kind of stuff, you are just as smart and you are just enough. And I think that's the biggest piece of being a woman of color in the STEM field itself as an engineer.
Or anyone else?
I would say I can speak also from being a person of color in STEM. The earth sciences still suffer from really poor representation. It is horrendous numbers. And so for me, the biggest challenge has been that feeling of isolation, like it's just always me alone in a room full of people who look nothing like me. And so sometimes it feels very isolating. And so I would say that has been the biggest challenge I've faced. So I have had to reach out to colleagues who may look like me, but be from a very different field. And so that's where I get the support from. It still is yet to come from within the STEM field, at least for the earth sciences. I'm really happy to hear Tiffany talk about the support for people of color in engineering, but it's still very lacking in the earth sciences. And so to overcome that challenge of isolation, I just seek out people that I at least can talk to about things.
I was going to add like almost exactly the same thing. Like it can feel very isolating, especially from like coming from an LGBTQ perspective. Like it feels like there are aspects of yourselves that you have to like keep locked down and not share. It might be seen as unprofessional in some places, and really finding those like affinity groups, like maybe you're the only person like of your demographic or of your group, like where you're working or where you're studying, but reaching out to those affinity groups either like online or like in professional societies that like share those experiences with you can like make everything feel like a lot less lonely, and like you're not totally alone in that situation, because you're absolutely not. There are so many other people going through the same experience with you who like share those same struggles and those same joys, and it's just great to connect with them, even if they're not like right where you can see them.
Okay, so this will be our last question for this session, and then we'll wrap it up. Tell us about a piece of advice that you received from someone else that has stuck with you. Any advice somebody has given you that is still stuck with you, you know?
I don't know that I received like a specific piece of like advice that was worded in a way that stuck with me, but I absolutely remember all the people who have supported me, like going back to like junior high, the people who helped get me into like after school programs, who helped get me into internships, who mentored me in undergraduate, who like mentor me at work and are like invested in my success. That really sticks with me, and like finding those people who support what you do and want to see you succeed is like really vital.
I would say when I was younger, I come from a mixed race family, and my grandmom would always say, love who you are, because there weren't a lot of kids like my sisters and I that came from mixed race families back then. Although I'm happy to see that that is definitely changing. And so I think that has helped me overcome a lot of things. So whether I feel isolated because I'm a female in STEM, or I'm a person of color, or I come from a completely different country and culture, just embracing who I am has just been something that has always stuck with me. And I credit my grandmom, who is no longer here, but I credit her with that, giving me that sort of self-esteem in who I am.
I'll just do a quote that I always push. Shirley Chisholm, she has a quote called, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your folding chair." And so that is what stuck with me, and that's what I stick to. And I mean, it's important, regardless, bring your folding chair. It's so many opportunities, regardless of what obstacles we go through. So that's one of the quotes, models, I stick to with whatever obstacles I go through. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it no matter what, because I know I'm enough. And so that's what I have stuck with. That's what I still stick with all the opportunities that I know I'm capable of doing.
I don't know if there was a specific piece of advice, but one thing was that my mother, when I was growing up, was in the computer science field, and she was also a very involved in various fine art aspects, so fiber arts and things like that. And she was always doing creative endeavors, going to classes for learning new art skills and that kind of thing. And I think to me, it helped me see that you didn't have to give up other things that you enjoyed. And in fact, using those creative skills helps. It helps you in all sorts of different ways, in problem solving, and also for my field, I make things. And so actually having the skills to make things is helpful. So seeing somebody who didn't, see it as like science or something else was helpful to me.
Okay, so that's all the questions we have for now. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing their stories with us today. And thank you to everyone watching for joining our conversation. Thank you so much.